What's going on, everybody? Welcome to LakerCentral, the post-game show. I'm Alex. That's Vinay. Make sure you guys subscribe on YouTube or subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, wherever you prefer to get your podcast. Heck of a win tonight, man. Heck of a win. The Lakers really did themselves, I think, a favor and won this game against a lethal opponent, 114 to 93. That second half, man. They outscored the Nuggets by 33 points. They put the clamps on, and
Yes.
I'm also hoping that Jokic. He had I think he finished with 13 points, but he missed 10 shots, and Trez did guard him a bit. Not that all those misses was on Trez's dime, but this was an opportunity for us to see how Trez might do in this game, how they might play someone like Jokic, especially considering we lost that game against Philly and Embiid. And big win, man. So, how are you feeling after this victory?
I feel great. Lakers first game back. We know that they've been a little shaky at home, especially with their starts, and it definitely looked like that in the first half. Denver's zone was giving the Lakers a lot of trouble. They had I thought it was really interesting that they had Caruso play the zone break role, which is the guy who stands right in the middle of the zone at the free throw line and make the decisions. It's actually something that he's not been good at. He doesn't necessarily make the right read. We've talked about how his playmaking can be better, but it seems to come with his reps and stuff like that. And they struggled against that zone. And then the second half, we get way better effort from everybody on the court. Dennis leading the way with his energy. Kuzma leading the way, running the floor hard on both ends. Lots of blocks, blowing up lob plays. And then they tried to run the zone. And immediately the very first thing Caruso did when he ran the zone break is he went, instead of kicking it out for a jump shot, he threw it down low. And it was LeBron who got the layup. And then Denver immediately said, oh, we can't run zone against these guys ever again. They only ran it like once or twice at the very most. So really a tale of two halves, I would say. Lakers came out maybe, I don't want to say everybody came out really, really kind of lethargic. I want to say that it was, mainly Anthony Davis. Your timeline probably mentioned that quite a bit tonight. But he look, the second half, he was deflecting balls, blocking shots. He wasn't scoring at the clip that we'd like him to score. But we really didn't need him to because we were scoring in transition so much in the second half. So I'm glad that they battled back. I'm glad that actually what I was really glad for, this was a very high profile game, like the Sixers and the Celtics game. And I am glad that Talen Horton-Tucker played a really great game today. And I'm glad that Kuzma played a really great game today because those guys have been really good for the Lakers. And, on my timeline, Tony Jones of The Athletic, he's the Jazz writer. Jason Jones, he's the athletic writer for the Kings. Draymond Green tweeted about it. They all tweeted about Kuz and just him becoming a better role player. And I'm just glad that those guys are getting their shine. We know who our guys are, and we know who the stars are and stuff like that. But I'm glad that the young guys are getting shine because they really have been the difference between the Lakers, like possibly losing some of these games and winning some of these games. And Dennis was great. I thought Trez's defense was great. I thought the entire scheme, the game plan that they had for any of those Jokic isolations and any of those pick and roll action, I thought the Lakers defended it amazingly. They did a fantastic job, and a lot of stuff had to do with like just effort, hustle. When this team like is locked in defensively, like it doesn't even have to be like 100% locked in, just like 80% locked in. It's so hard to score. This was the first game this season where Denver was held to less than 100 points. Isn't that crazy?
Look, Lakers had number one defense in the NBA.
Yep.
They are legit. And this, like, to me, AD was lethargic. I wasn't on Twitter at all during the game, but my wife was she stayed up and watched the game with me, and I was complaining just about kind of he wasn't engaged, and I think there's something's up. Like I don't know what, but he is not the same player he's been his entire career at right now. Something's up with him. But aside from that, this is why you bring in guys like Trez
Hmm.
and Dennis, right? And you hope that guys like Kuzma take a step and Alex Caruso. So like AD only had 13. He had 13 points, 9 rebounds. He did have three steals and 2 blocks. So he was
Hmm.
obviously he was active defensively, particularly in the second half, as you alluded to. But Dennis, man, I mean, he hit his 3 pointers tonight. He was 2 for 2 from deep. He only missed 2 shots overall, 21 points. Trez was active. Taylor Horton Tucker, his craftiness around the basket. I mean, we've seen it all season, but like he was fearless.
Yeah.
Um, they got a lot of help out of these other guys, man. So I mean, LeBron triple double. LeBron was great all game. I mean, he had
Yeah.
it going all game, and I thought when I think Denver had got it down to like 10 in the second half, and
Hmm.
LeBron was on the bench, and I was like, okay, all right, Frank, bring LeBron. Like, don't let LeBron sit as long
Yeah.
as he normally does, because
Yeah.
especially if AD doesn't have it going, and he brought LeBron back in, and they pushed it back to 15, and after that it was over. But this is why you bring all these guys in. And I was curious to see, especially given that Embiid kind of had his way with us a few nights ago, maybe a week ago now. But like, I just wanted to see how we play Jokic because
Hmm.
a lot of people are saying that he's up for MVP, and the Nuggets are certainly better now than they were to start the season. And the Lakers came out lethargic in that first half, but that second half, man, like the second half showed why many of us believe they can three-peat, right? Like when they're engaged, and not only when they're engaged, but like this is with Anthony not this is without Anthony Davis going for 25 or 30.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
this was that second half showed why we think that they can repeat.
Yeah. Jokic started off like good, like in the first, I don't know, 4 minutes, and I saw like an avalanche of tweets hit the timeline and stuff like that from Lakers Twitter. Oh, Lakers are going to get cooked by Jokic. There's a lot of grumbling, obviously, early on before the game started because that Vogel told the media that we like our chances of Gasol and Trez and how we're going to be defending Jokic, and so people are like, oh, Jokic is going to go
Mm-hmm.
off for like a triple double, 40 point triple double or something like that. But I think the part that people always forget is Frank Vogel is very, very in tune with what his players' strengths and weaknesses are.
Mm-hmm.
And though Trez can't act, like Trez can't defend Vogel like that, right? Like, or sorry, not Vogel. He can't defend Jokic like that straight up because Jokic just shoot all over him. But if you can get Jokic out of the paint, right, where he has to like face up Trez can like an offensive lineman protecting a QB. He can stay in front of Jokic. That's
Yep.
not a problem. And so what happens after that is how you scheme around that. Do you blitz him? Do you show doubles? Do you not show doubles? Do you try to get out of his hands? Like the Lakers weren't trying to force it out of Jokic's hands today. All they wanted him to dribble the ball so that they could try and poke the ball away. It's
Mm-hmm.
actually exactly what teams try to do to Anthony Davis because they know Anthony Davis wants to dribble the ball on the floor before
Yep.
he kind of like goes for that layup, and so that's why we always see him get stripped. The Lakers tried to do the same thing to Jokic. They said, "Okay, go ahead, dribble the ball, see what happens." And it definitely disrupted his rhythm to some point. Them continually attacking Jokic and realizing that he's not going to block their shots because he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't know how to block or defend the rim without fouling. Like once I thought that when they ran that zone, the Lakers got into a jump shooting contest, and that's why the game got away from them. They had good
Mm-hmm.
shots, but they just didn't go down. But the Lakers' identity is not a jump shooting team. But once they realized that, hey, maybe we shouldn't shoot jump shots because these guys can't block our shots, we should just attack the rim. And it was led by guys like Dennis, guys like THT, who just kept attacking the rim. Then it started clicking for them, and they kind of built that confidence back and stuff like that. But you know, I really this team defensively, like there's been some games, man, where like even the very first game of the season where they lock in for like one quarter and they can erase like a 20-point deficit like against a team like the Clippers.
Yep.
Like, and this was the number 3 offensive team in the league. And they had bodied Utah. Like Jokic
Yep.
torched Rudy Gobert
He did.
the last game that they played. So for the Lakers to do what they did, like by committee, they had AD on them sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
They had Trez, they had Mark. Mark didn't start off well, but then eventually it started turning into like 50-50 basketball
Right.
with him and Jokic. You could tell that Mark was taking some of this personally because like the way he was being like active on offense every time he ended up getting scored on, I was like, all right,
Mm-hmm.
Mark doesn't want to be like seen as a guy who can't defend Jokic. And I think he's a guy where like the next time he plays Jokic, he'll be better and he'll be better. And then by the time the playoffs come around, he'll know how he needs to defend Jokic and stuff like that, or Embiid or guys like that. If the time comes in the playoffs, so it was great, man. I thought the bench really stepped up. They changed the course of the game, and I have a conspiracy theory. I think I'm not sure if it's accurate or if it's true, but I honestly think that sometimes, and I don't know if Anthony Davis and LeBron are doing this at the same time on purpose, or if it's just whatever it is, like them being tired or just taking a little bit easier at home. But it feels like they're like today. It feels like LeBron came out, he was scoring, hit 2 jumpers, hit a three, was hot. But then it felt like after that he was really selective, like with what shots he would take,
Mm-hmm.
especially in the half court. Like he wasn't trying to force it to the rim. He kept giving it to Dennis, kept giving it to Kuz, kept giving it to like THT. It almost felt like Braun, without telling his teammates, you guys need to get used to like carrying a load or something like that. It seemed
Mm-hmm.
like he was almost forcing them by being passive. Because normally you and I've always told you, like, it's annoying when Braun gets passive because these guys are waiting for him to do something, so they know how to
Right.
play around him. But I think Braun's way of trying to get them to understand that, like, don't play as if you're expecting me to do everything. Play as if I'm just another guy on the court. Like we saw that today. Like the second half, he just kept giving the ball back to Dennis. It was similar to shoot, what was it? What game was it? It would I want to say it was the Boston. Yeah, it was the Boston game where like towards the late game, like Braun was getting doubled when he'd go to the rim and stuff like that. And then Dennis kept trying to give it to Braun, and Braun would give it back to Dennis. And he'd just be like, no, like you have a speed advantage on the guy that they're putting on you. And then that's when we had like that Daniel Tice, the one where he drives with Daniel Tice and gets the and one play and stuff like that. It feels like Braun's trying to teach these guys. You guys are much more capable of what you think you are. You don't need to rely on me
Right.
to go down the court 5 plays in a row and steamroll for a layup. And I think that's helping. I think he couldn't do that, and I don't think he could do that with Wes Matthews and Markieff, because that's been the main difference, right? The Lakers have shortened their rotation and they've gone that way. And I think with THT, Kuz, and Caruso, Braun is telling them, he's trying to encourage them, like kind of passive aggressively, I guess is the best way I can describe it, like to like attack the rim. And you see what happens when THT attacks the rim. Good things happen. When Caruso attacks the rim, good things happen. And Kuzma continues to space the floor for the entire team and hustle and stuff like that. So it's good, man. We're playing 3 guys that we would think or would be like the, that we treat like the, I don't know, 7th, 8th, and 9th best guys on our roster. And they're playing real minutes against real teams. That they played against the Sixers, they played against the Celtics, and now they've played against the Nuggets too as well. That's if the Lakers are experimenting with lineups and experimenting getting these guys ready for playoff atmosphere, or like get their reps up.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the league should be concerned that the Lakers are able to play 3 guys who would be towards the back end of somebody else's rotation, and they're winning games against like teams that are supposed to be contenders, and they're winning minutes against those kind of guys. So it's a good sign for Laker fans, man.
I mean, we know that they're not able to practice because of COVID, right? So they're trying a lot of new things in the game. And for I know some fans have been kind of down on how they've looked at certain times during the season, but like they've been better. They've been better this year coming off of such a short off season than I think anybody should have reasonably anticipated, right? Like LeBron's not resting the way that we thought he might be resting this season. LeBron looks like he hasn't stopped since. He looks just like he did in the finals last year, right? I mean, he's still one of the best players in the NBA. And I think a team like Denver, like every year they've gotten better. And last year they got to the Western Conference Finals. And maybe they thought it was their time. But we know how this thing works. You get better every single year. And you finally break through. And like tonight, many of us think that Porter Jr. is going to have to like be the third guy on this team. And he was like 3 of 10 tonight. He didn't look great. I mean, Kuzma had that huge block on him when they had that 4-on-1 fast break, and they pulled up at the top of the 3, and Kuzma blocked it. I mean, Denver is good, but they're not ready for the Lakers. Frankly, they're not ready for the Clippers either. I don't think they're there yet. Maybe they'll look different as this season progresses, but as of right now, I'm not worried about them at all because, to your point, Jokic he dominated Utah the other night. And you look at tonight, he looked very average tonight.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I want to we got our man Raj Unwritten Rules in the green room. So let me bring
Oh
him
yeah.
in.
Our guy, bring him in.
Raj, man, how's it going?
You.
What's going on, man? Can you hear me?
Me and Raj matching with the black sweatshirts tonight. I like it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. How's it going?
Good, man. I'm sure everybody watching knows who this is. Raj Unwritten Rules on Twitter. Raj, man, what did you see tonight out of the Lakers?
Oh man, a second half turnaround. 12-point down at halftime. Lakers Twitter obviously was losing its mind, and then they just turned it on in the second half. They have like a defensive turn that they can just go to a switch, and it just turns all the water off. They had the rotations on Crisp in Crisp in the third quarter against Jokic, and yeah, they just made a huge run. And once they went up 8 or 9, I knew that game was not coming back. Denver just couldn't create any offensive looks, and THT, man, that layup package that he has, teams are just not blocking it. I have not seen a guard like at 20 with that kind of shiftiness and able to finish. There was one play I thought he was gonna get blocked by Jamichael Green, and his arms just kept going, like they just extended while he was laying it up. Yeah, it was an awesome game to see them come out and turn it up in the second half.
You know what the crazy part about him is? The most unique part about him is that he's got like a bowling ball kind of body. Like it's like compact, but his arms are super long. So when he collides with like bigs, like it like I'm sure it's not like a soft, it's not like Jamal Murray or Dennis Schroeder colliding with you. It probably hurts because of the way he collides. But the fact that he uses it to like stabilize himself so that he can get easy layups, I know. So I think you've mentioned it, Raj, that like he's like, or somebody on the broadcast says he's like a rim seeker. I don't think he's just a rim seeker. I think he's a contact seeker. I think he needs to collide with dudes so that he feels more comfortable finishing around the rim. But you're right, man. Like I thought that because of his long arms and what he was like, that he was like an above the rim player. But he may actually be a better below the rim player just because of how shifty he is with the way he finishes around the rim. And I don't know. Teams are. I mean, when Kyrie does stuff like that below the rim, and like teams are not ready for it, and now you're seeing him do that. He keeps doing that like reverse layup thing with his right hand going to the left side, which would be like you do that in like high school or something. Your coach is gonna pull you, be like, finish with your left hand. Like, what are you doing? But he makes them, and it's crazy to see something like that.
I mean, what did you guys expect tonight? Like, did you think it'd be closer than what it was? Because I didn't think they'd blow them out. Like, I figured it would go down to the wire. I thought Denver would put up a much better fight than they did. It kind of felt like they jumped out in that first half. They maybe started feeling themselves a little bit. And then second half, it was like, it looked like they didn't even come out the locker room. I think they only scored 17 and 18 points in the third and 14th quarter.
Right. Yeah, and Denver's been playing really well. I know Vinay and Alex, you guys watch a lot of regular basketball. Like Denver, they just destroyed Utah, who had like a 10 game win streak, and they hit like 14 of their first 17 threes or something crazy like that. This is a really good offensive team. Like, and I know the Lakers blew them out in the second half, but still, that's a good team. Jokic and Murray have like extreme chemistry with each other and that pick and roll. It was kind of amazing to see them shut it down. But yeah, I really thought this would be close. And Lakers obviously haven't been playing well at home. And they jumped out to that 12-point lead. I thought it would be a fight coming back in that third quarter, but yeah, they just turned it on and never looked back.
Raj, what do you think is up with AD, man? I mean, he was really good on the defensive end in the second half, but he still looks really lethargic. Like, do you think that he's just tired from the finals run last year? Like, what do you think's up with him?
Yeah, so like I think it was after the Boston game, he did the post game interview. I think it was on TNT, and they interviewed him. And they asked him about it, and he said, yeah, he's just trying to get the other guys involved. He's trying to still get Schroeder going, and trying to get him going, and I think he's towing that line still. I see a lot of people saying it's effort. I think that part is past. Like I think he is trying now. Like you see it on defense, he's getting the blocks, he's getting the steals, deflections, but like he's not getting in rhythm in offense, and I think there's like a thin line that they have to play. I think when games matter, he's gonna come out and start. But I mean, he took 4 shots in the first half. I mean, that's intentional. Like that's not something he just does if he's really locked in offensively in the game. And That's where I see it. I think the championship hangover is gone. Like all the Advils you take for hangovers, that's all over with. Like
Yeah.
it's time to work now, and I think he knows that. And the Lakers are winning, so he needs to play better offensively. But I think he's okay with like Vinay and Alex. You saw like when he gets the ball in the paint, he's not even
Mhm.
looking at the rim. Like he's seeing where the
Yeah,
help
he's not.
is
Yeah.
and finding out the kick out. And he got a lot of really awesome hockey assists. Like he kicked it to Schroeder. The Schroeder kicked it in the corner to KCP. So
Yep.
I think he's okay with that for now, and he knows he can score when it matters.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. Like, I would love to see him go for 25 or 30, like we know he's capable of. But I mean, you're right.
Right.
Tonight, 8 shots total. I think they asked Frank. I don't know, coming out of the half. I think Reggie asked him, like, "Are you going to get him going?" And I mean, they would. Frank said he would like to get 80 going a bit more, but 8 shots. Clearly, he wasn't looking to score tonight. And in the second
Yeah.
half, they didn't need it at all. I thought they could have used a little more, offensive focus out of him in that first half. But they're really good. Like, they're just much better than I think than I think that they would have been this season. And you look at a game like tomorrow, they play the Pistons, and I kind of feel like, are they going to beat the Pistons tomorrow? Or are they going to come out kind of lazy and just like whatever, it's a back to back? Like, what do you guys think?
I think they'll probably. I think they want to win that game just because they know that they probably lost that game in embarrassing
Right.
fashion with their effort and stuff like that. I think that game we did have AD, and I'm assuming AD will probably play tomorrow. Um, you know, I think Raj is right. I think he is trying to get his teammates more involved. Like right before Raj came on, like we were talking about, like LeBron seems to do this thing where like when Dennis is trying to give the ball up too much to everybody else, like LeBron immediately gives it back to them. Like I've seen it like today, this game, there was a couple times where Dennis got the ball back and he passed it to Braun, and Braun immediately, like it wasn't even a set play. Like Braun passed it right back to Dennis as if he was basically saying, "No, I'm not going to do anything with this. Like you're going to have to figure it out." And I don't know if Braun and AD are like secretly conspiring and saying, "Hey, we got to get these guys to be more confident in themselves offensively." But it could be that they understand the value of having teammates that are confident when they score and they attack the rim. And we already know KCP has no fear when he shoots the ball. But the new guys are the guys that need to be more confident. The Carusos, the THTs, the Kuzmas. We need those guys to be confident in order to win another championship. I'm just glad that they're kind of stepping up to the plate, and I'm glad that Frank made the decision to bump Wes and Markieff out of the lineup. I maybe we'll see them a little bit more tomorrow to spell some of the minutes if the Lakers end up coming out to a big lead. But I mean, the way I think of it, like those guys are professionals, like those guys are consummate pros, like they know what they are in this league and stuff like that. And I think Frank has probably told them like, look, we're gonna call on you when we need to call on you, but we need to get the young legs out here because these guys have to get up to speed also. And it's just crazy how much of a difference it's made that we're playing THT, Caruso, Kuzma. Like, can you imagine last year if we had what would have happened if we had played a Caruso, THT, Kuzma lineup? We would have been going crazy. So it's crazy to see how far they've come in one season with no off season, no practices. These guys are learning on the fly. It's awesome.
I feel like it's that championship boost, man. Like once you get that championship under your belt, like your confidence goes through the roof. And it's nice to see these guys play within themselves. Like Kuzma, I think one of the issues he's had is that he gets in the game. Sometimes he takes quick shots. He wasn't always playing great defense. It's at times, I've said to Steve Vinay a number of times, I always felt like he was trying to go back and forth with whoever the other young guy wasn't, like especially Michael Porter. Like, and I've got my own suspicions on why I thought Kuzma was going back and forth with him. But like it feels like he's playing within himself. And Caruso's an all league defender, man. Like that dude, he's an all league defender. He plays within himself as well. He's confidently shooting the ball. And then THT, is he found money at this point? Like, I mean, he's got to be way ahead of schedule.
I mean, he's
way past.
Rich Paul doesn't represent bums, so I mean, I'm not surprised that he's doing. But I want to ask Roger a question. What was the difference? So that everything, the soundbite came out. Vogel said, "Yeah, we like our chances with Mark and Montrez against Jokic," and everybody on the timeline was like, "Oh, like I saw all the quote tweets to to that tweet, like, oh, Jokic gonna cook us for 50.
Yeah.
What did you see in those matchups? Because the Lakers didn't do too much hard doubling. They weren't trying to get the ball out of Jokic's hands. But what did you see that the Lakers did, or what is it about what the Lakers did compared to, say, obviously the Clippers, that made Montrez more effective as a defender versus what we've heard about him as a defender?
Yeah, so I think it was like playing next to AD, like, and he has AD at the rim, right? And
Mm-hmm.
what the Lakers didn't, you're right, they didn't send that many doubles. They allowed Jokic. If you saw in the beginning, right, he got a lot of buckets on Mark.
Yeah.
Like, he would just power in the post and lay it in. And I think the Lakers live with that. They're like, okay, if you want to just go into Mark's chest every single time, then go ahead. Or if you want to just go into Trez's chest every single time, go ahead. There's AD waiting for you at the rim, and we're not letting
Mm-hmm.
you kick out to 3-point shooters. Jamal Murray's not getting open shots coming
Yeah.
off curls. Like, we're gonna just stay home. And if you want to beat us with like 30 different fadeaway jump shots, then go ahead. And he obviously, that's not in Jokic's DNA. Like, he wants to pass it. That's his offense. That's the Nuggets offense. So I think they kind of forced him into that. And Mark is just a super smart positional defender. He's not gonna let you beat him around. Like, he's not gonna let you just trick him. He's gonna be right in the correct place. And Trez did his job as well. And he stayed in front. He contested at the top. Jokic hit some like fadeaways over him, but he's gonna do that. I thought that was the main difference. And even though they didn't trap, I thought THT was really good at like coming down and then going and releasing back. And Caruso as well, who's really great at that. Like, not a full hard double, but like a quick little hit and come back, and then the shot clock's at like 5 seconds, and he has to throw it out or take a tough shot. And I thought that was the difference there. They didn't let Trez just play one-on-one, and like, you can kind of see if Jokic gets in a rhythm, then you send help. I mean, the Clippers just left him on an island. I mean, he's just one of the best big man scorers ever. He's going to get baskets. And again, like, I don't think the Lakers fully are what caused him to have 13 points. Like, he's not going to do that in a series. I mean, we watched him in the playoffs. That guy's a monster in the playoffs. So the Lakers did their job, though, and that's all you can ask of them.
Yeah. I feel like the best thing that they did was they like reduced like his decision time, like the amount of time he gets to make a passing decision and find the open guy. And I thought one of the best things he did is what makes him so good is he knows how to create an advantage, and then also he knows where the rotation is going to come from, where the help guy is going to come from. So he already knows where he wants to pass it. And I thought there was a couple of plays where like it was either THT or KCP. Where they would come from like the top of the same side, top of the wing, and he would like kind of fake like he was going to double, and then he wouldn't, and then he would go and like try to attack the live dribble. But as that double happened, the rotation was already made on the backside. So if Jokic's brain was thinking, okay, if he comes, I'm going to pass it here, it was too late because the rotation was already done. So Lakers didn't even wait. They just said, all right, we're not going to wait for you to pass the ball. We're going to rotate first. And you're going to have to figure this out before we try to steal this ball from you. And they would do it like you said, they would do it like if he's trying to run down the clock, if he's holding it for too long, now you have less time on the clock. You were just dribbling it 4 times or something like that. You got to either, get your feet set, get the shot off. So it's like one of the things that we've seen like people do to Braun. Like they'll say, all right, you know what, Braun, if you're going to score 55 on us with layups, you can go ahead and do it. But we're not going to let you get 10 assists. We're only going to let you get 2 assists because we know that to put up 55 on layups is exhausting for even the most elite players. And so you're right. Jokic's profile is not shooting jump shots, right? His profile, he needs to get to the rim. And if it's the long game, like the first quarter, he may torch us for the first 6 minutes, but what about the second? What about the third? Does he even have legs in the fourth? And then on the same side, like we attack him on the offensive end. Like he's not going to block you. Right. Like that's not his thing. So playing the long game, it's Vogel's a smart guy, man. He finds ways to like to take away some of the stuff that you like, and then you got to figure other stuff out.
But I think Raj's point is right about like the way they played Jokic tonight, right? So like baiting him into going one-on-one, going into the chest of Mark and into Trez. Like, look, we grew up watching Shaq, right? Like that's exhausting on not only the defensive player but on the offensive player. Like Shaq was built to consistently bang the way that he played, but Jokic isn't. That's not his game to back you down every single time down the court. Him to be the primary scorer. He's looking to get everybody else involved. And in a game like tonight where they let Jokic kind of get it going early on, but the rest of the Nuggets, like they weren't great. Nobody else was great. Murray wasn't great either. I think he had 20, but it wasn't on a great percentage. Like
Right.
he did, they didn't let Jokic get everybody else involved and get going. And at that point, game was over. You know.
Yeah.
Right. And then Denver adjusted to that in the second half. They started running screen roll actions. So
Mhm.
in the first half they were just doing post ups. Then they went to screen roll actions, and then the Lakers switched it, right? So you saw Schroeder on Jokic, you saw KCP, Kuzma, and again they just did the same thing. They said if you want to back us down, then go ahead. We're gonna be right in your chest, and
Mm-hmm.
then the help is coming. 80s again at the rim, so they did a nice job communicating. I think there was a play where Marcus Gasol was like switched on top, and KCP came back and switched
Mhm.
before they got a
Yep.
chance to attack him. And yeah, so they did a really nice job communicating with that on the switches.
Yeah, and I would say that as it relates to Montrez specifically, the conversations that people have had, one of the things I think a lot of astute Laker fans have tried to point out, which some people listen to and some people don't, for because they want to get their jokes off or whatever, is that when you pair Montrez with competent perimeter defenders and not
Yep.
guys like Lou Williams and Landry Shamet who can't stay in front of anybody, it makes a big difference. And guys like Caruso, guys like Kuzma, guys like Tucker, like those guys have been really, really good on their rotations and at least slowing down the guys when the ball rotates and stuff like that. Of course, you have Anthony Davis and LeBron also there at the same time. Like we've talked about this many times before, Alex. Like defense in the NBA is a point of failure thing. If the more points of failure you have in terms of your personnel on the floor, the easier it is to collapse it. Like look at the game. I don't know if you watched the game that was prior, the Dallas Warriors game. That game was hideous. Like every single guy was blowing by both
Mm-hmm.
sides. Like Dallas was just blowing by somebody. Eventually, the Warriors would blow by every single time. Like if you have too many points of failure, the good offenses and the elite players will they'll find that out and they'll expose it. And the Lakers don't have that many. When they're locked in, they don't have points of failure like that. And if they do, they know how to cover up for it. And Anthony Davis is like the best security blanket in the NBA.
Like I'm looking at their schedule so far this season, and I'm thinking this has got to be their best home win, right? Like they blew out Dallas early in the year, but Dallas
Yeah.
isn't the team I think that everyone thought that they would be. But I'm looking and I'm like, I don't know who else they beat at home that they were this impressive. Certainly on the road, but at home, this has got to be like a signature win for them this season.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is probably their best home win. And what do you, Siraj? What do you think it is? Why do you think we suck at home? Why do we start these games so shitty at home?
Man, I really think it's like, first of all, the crowd, zero crowd at home. I think it makes it really awkward. And then on the road, I mean, obviously California has a stricter guidelines,
Mm-hmm.
but there are some fans in other arenas, and I feel like that does kind of get them going. I think Jared Dudley or somebody, I don't know where I heard it, but they were on a podcast and said they went into Houston, and that like seeing like the 4 to 5 thousand fans in there really pumped them
Hmm.
up. Like LeBron started to like flex his passing, and AD started to like really start to cook. I think AD had like 30 in one of those nights. So I really
Mm-hmm.
think the crowd gets them going. Yeah, I think this is a team where like those two dives by Schroeder, like I'm just imagining that with like a full
Crazy.
crowd, man.
Man,
Yeah,
That game would
crazy.
have turned on its head. So I feel
Yeah.
like that's the reason they come out lackadaisical. And like I mean, when you're playing like Portland at home, I mean like they're kind of walking through it.
yeah.
Golden State again, they were up 20 and then just started sleepwalking, and Steph hit
Mm-hmm.
like a crazy step back. I mean, I just feel like those are the losses mainly at home, and you're gonna have some of those, especially this year. But I'm glad they're taking care of their work on the road. That's where you really show like what you are as a team, and they're absolutely dominant there.
Like, so I'm sure you guys saw LeBron pass Wilt for third all time and field goals made,
Hmm.
right? Dude's in year 18, and Reggie said that LeBron looks as good as he did early in his career. And like LeBron looks amazing, but Miami LeBron was something different. I think early on, like he doesn't. I think he still there's a drop off between now and early in his career, but the gap that he had between everybody else and him is so crazy that he's at this level. And for you to pass Wilt, like I mean, we're all aware of Wilt's records on and off the court, right?
They,
Like
they
for you
shouldn't
to
even. They should. I don't know why they include his records. Like they should just have him as like a separate thing in itself. But go, yeah, go ahead.
I mean, it's nuts, man. I mean, Kareem's at the top, but then there's Karl Malone, and I mean, Kareem's got 15,837 field goals. Do you think LeBron catches him?
I maybe I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know how long this old man is gonna play, man. I keep thinking that he's so one thing I think for sure he's not. I don't think LeBron's gonna decline and then retire. I think when he feels like he's done, like he's just gonna be like I'm done. Like and he may finish at he may still be averaging 27 a game, but he's gonna say okay, I'm done. I'm tired now. But I think he wants to get all those records. Like if he can hit Jordan 6, that would be great because it flips the whole conversation on its head. Nobody can say that he doesn't have as many as Jordan, and if anybody says that Jordan's undefeated in the finals, I mean the Braun fans are just going to turn around and say Jordan wasn't good enough to make it to 6 other finals, so that's his fault. So like those conversations will always happen, but if he can get those statistical accolades, I think he's going to do it, man. Like he's got a good running mate in Anthony Davis locked in for the next 4 or 5 years, and you got these young guys who are willing to like scrap the way they are. Like okay, I'll ask you guys: did LeBron's? I don't even know how much he actually scored today, but the points that he put up today, did it seem like he had to work really hard to get them?
Not at all. And I think that's the thing, like I was gonna bring up, is the 3-point shot changes everything. It really does. He doesn't have to see a defender if he doesn't want to. He can just come up. People aren't gonna stay up there because you have to worry about him in transition. And he's just pulling up nonchalant like it is an empty gym, I guess. But like in a empty gym, even more empty than it is. And he's just drilling 3-pointers. Like there was a play today, I think the Lakers were up 10, and then you could see Denver kind of reeling. And then Trez sets a pick, I think. And, Jokic, like, he can't come out on that. Like, that's not fair to ask him. And LeBron just drills, like, a 35-footer behind a Trez screen. And I could just see the faces of Denver, like, what do we do? Like, we're down 13. And so, like, and I have no idea when the decline is coming. I didn't get to watch, like, I watched him in Miami, but I wasn't watching, like, every game, I guess. I was watching the finals, obviously, so. But man, he looks as dominant as ever. Like his mind obviously is at a different level, in my opinion, than it was there. Like how Draymond Green can control a game with like just his mind, like how smart he is. Now then, imagine LeBron, who's I think the smartest player to ever play, and obviously he still has the skills. He's still he like threw Paul Millsap off. Like I thought that was a small guard on the first replay, and then they showed the replay, and it was Paul Millsap flying back like he was Brandon Ingram his rookie year. I'm like, dude, this is insane. This dude's crazy. So I'm just blessed that he's a Laker.
I was gonna say it's absolutely nuts that this guy is shooting 41% from 3. The biggest I don't know, like not the biggest like strike against him that people have always said is this guy can't shoot. Like so he's got to steamroll his way to the rim, and he's shooting over 40% from 3. That is, I don't know. The only word I can think of is outrageous. That is outrageous for somebody to be doing that. And I've made I've told Alex before that I always thought that Braun, his later years, if he ever did decline, he would turn into a guy like Scottie Pippen, like the Scottie Pippen on the Blazers, who was like really, really good, really cerebral, he was still an athlete. He had like the defensive chops, and he was so good that he could be like that glue guy, that kind of like help them get to the finals. But dude, Braun is he's still scoring at a ridiculous clip, and now his jump shooting is even better. So it's just like, look, man, there's nobody who's better in tune with his body, and there's nobody who is more forward thinking about what he needs to do when it comes to the counters of like what direction the game is going in. And him shooting threes is the play that you're talking about, Raj. We were up 10, and then Denver took a timeout, and then they hit a corner 3 on us to cut it to 7. And you're right. It felt like, all right, if they score again, the Lakers may be in a little bit of trouble in a fight. And Braun just casually comes down, goes behind the screen, hits a 3. And I'm just like, last year we would have been like, Braun, don't do that. What are you doing? Go to the rim. But it's crazy, man. It's crazy to see him play this well.
I mean, he shot in one of his years in Miami, he shot 40%. What's really crazy is that, though, he only was shooting like 3 threes a game when he was in Miami. He's shooting damn near 7 threes a game now and shooting 41%. Like, that is 7 threes a game. And he can still get to the rim. He's still stronger than everybody. He can still finish above the rim. I mean, he really doesn't have a weakness, right? Like, he doesn't have a weakness at all.
Yeah. And he's choosing not to be... there was the play, and I was watching the Spectrum broadcast, so I had unmuted it a little bit because there were some stoppages. but there was a play where he made a cut right through the middle of the lane. I think it was the first half or the second half, and it looked like he was going to do like this. And I don't know who delivered him the pass, but it was a wide open lane. I thought he was going to like power slam it on somebody and we get like some sort of highlight reel. But he just casually finishes it with a left hand layup, and I was just like, all right, man, this old man's just taking it easy. He's not taking it serious right now, and he's a funny guy, man. It's just funny to watch a guy who plays with. This is the most nonchalant I've ever seen him play. Like even when he was with Miami and Cleveland, it seemed like he was like this guy who played like balls to the wall, like 100% every single time, and he's still playing 100% to some degree. But it just seems like he's not pressed. He's very unpressed as he goes through the game. And I don't know if you guys saw the replay. I thought there was a really funny moment where Jermichael Green slipped by him and got that putback dunk in like the second quarter or something like that. And I don't know if you guys saw the replay. It's like Anthony Davis is looking at LeBron. And like as soon as Jermichael Green dunks it, LeBron, like a little kid who gets in trouble for breaking something in the house, he's already giving up some excuse or something like that. And I was just like, it's all right, man. Like we get it. Like it's like game 20 of the regular season. Yeah, we get it. You didn't want to box him out, so I just think that kind of stuff is funny to see.
I think so we've got their schedule through March 3rd, and they don't have very many big games between now and then. Like at this point, they've got Denver again at Denver. They've got Brooklyn in LA. They've got Miami in LA. And then they've got Utah in Utah. I mean, other than that, it's like, Phoenix, Sacramento, DC, Memphis, OKC. So I wonder, how locked in do you think they remain? And I'll start with you, Raj. How locked in do you think they remain just through March 3rd?
Well, I think they'll definitely get up for the Brooklyn game. I think they'll get up again for the game in Denver, but I mean, you just never know. I think the other guys will be on. Like I think Trez and Caruso and all of them will still bring the energy. I think LeBron and AD will continue to like coast the way they have and just turn it on for certain quarters, which is frustrating as hell to watch sometimes. But that's what they can do. You saw it tonight. I mean, tonight's just gonna further increase their level of like we can just turn it on. Why shouldn't they believe that? I mean, the Nuggets were humming. They had 58 points in the first half. They had 30 in the first, 20 in the second, and then it just completely turned off. So I see, but I hope they stop like blowing against like bad teams. I think they'll get that respect from Sacramento. I think Sacramento will get their respect. Sacramento's been playing pretty well. So we'll see how it goes. But I think this team is good enough to where like they have such a high margin for error. Tonight, I mean, even with AD not playing well, Schroeder just comes up and drops 21. And in my opinion, he outplayed Jamal Murray. I mean, that's just think about that from just a matchup standpoint. If the Lakers are outplaying the point guard position, I mean, then you really don't have any. And you see how the score looks. So I think their margin of error is so high.
I was gonna say they had some spot moments where they put THT on him too, and he had like two strips on him. He had a strip on him from behind, and I was just like, and then I think in the first quarter, there was a play where Murray tried to go for that left inside post up that he was torching Danny Green with in the playoffs, and Danny Green for some reason couldn't defend it, but like Caruso stayed stout, stayed in front of him. He didn't give him any angles to drive by, let him take he forced him into the fall away. And even when he went for the fall away, he went for that strip. Like he got close enough to try and strip it out of his hand on the way out. And Murray shorted the jumper and stuff like that. But like there's like I gotta imagine for a guy like THC, guys like Caruso, that's got to be some confidence because Murray is supposed to be like he can explode for 50 points at any time, any game. So like it helps build confidence. Like Gasol will have more confidence the next time he plays Jokic. Same thing for Trez. Same thing for THT. Like, I think these are good things when we get these sort of wins. It's good because Frank, Vogel can literally say, hey, let's just keep doing this and then improve in these small things right here. And we'll be fine. Like, we left points on the board. Like, there's a bunch. I thought in the first half we missed like a bunch of easy layups like that we should have probably made. And, sky's the limit with this team, man. I think the talent on this team is really good. And we're not even playing Wes and Markieff. Markieff was an important playoff guy for us last season, and Wes is actually supposed to be our Danny Green replacement, and we haven't really even been using him. He's been injured up and down, and then obviously his minutes and stuff with THC's rotation minutes. But This team can be. There's a better version of this team, man. Where all 11 guys are fully engaged and they're rolling teams. So I'm looking forward to it. I think they'll stay focused. To answer your question, Alex, like I think I think Vogel is going to have to be really in tune with knowing like what games AD's not playing well, where he's not engaged on the offensive end, and put him in a position if he's engaged on the defensive end and not so much on the offensive end. Put him in a position where Montrez is the guy carrying the offense down low,
Right.
and AD can just kind of float around and play defense and stuff like that. And same thing with LeBron. Like if there's games where LeBron wants to be more of a facilitator, put THT out there, put Caruso, put the slashing guards and the shooters and this stuff out there, so LeBron can set them up and stuff like that in transition.
So when you mentioned there's a better version of this team, there is, because Anthony Davis can be much better, and the Lakers only shot 33% from three today, and they've been great. I mean, they shot like they did last year, but this season they've been really great at three. So had they hit half of their threes like they've been doing all year, this might have been a 30-point blowout against the Nuggets. And I want to end the show on this, man, as a ha-ha to all the Clippers fans out there who said Trez couldn't play against Denver. 24 minutes tonight, and Jokic looked average. He looked really average in the second half of this game. So Trez is certainly playable against Denver and some of these other bigs.
Yeah, yeah. Trez was playable against Boston. I know we weren't exactly very excited about seeing him finish the Boston game because we were concerned about layups at the rim with Tatum and stuff like that. But he was playable for a lot of that game, especially with the bench units too as well. Same thing with the Sixers. The more reps that he gets, and Raj is right. At the beginning of the season, they were pairing Trez with Markieff, and Markieff is not the defender that to pair with Trez. But these past 4 games, I would say they've been pairing AD with Trez, and the results have been way different defensively. And so I think Frank is going to see that sort of thing and find ways to pair those two guys together. And it's good because it's a form of load management for AD. He just has to play defense. Don't worry about the offense. We'll give it to Trez down low, and he can handle it.
Yeah, it's almost like defense is a team game, right? It's almost like defense is like between 5 dudes and not one.
Not just one guy.
Not just on one guy. But what I love also as Vogel is doing is he's pairing THT with Trez. I feel like those two have built the most chemistry with Trez as any other pick and roll. We thought it would be Schroeder, right? And in the offseason, but it's been THT, and in those second units, he just brings a whole new dimension, and he finds Trez in pick and roll. He runs pick and roll with him and finds him the dunker spot. So I just love what he's been doing. And on defense, if you let Trez not have to be the main back line, he's pretty good. He's fast. All those skills he has on offense, right, where he's quick, he's fast, he's nimble. All those things translate to the defensive end if you put him in the right position, and Vogel has done that, and Trez has a pretty good defensive rating overall in any of his lineups so far. And obviously the Lakers have the best defense, so I think he's been great. He's been a good addition.
Yeah, he's been great, man. I'm glad the Lakers were able to steal him away from the Clippers. And look, Clippers also lost JaMychal Green, who we saw tonight also. And so
he looks good. He looked good too. He was hitting a bunch of threes, got a bunch of putbacks. I was just like, what the hell? But they start. I didn't know why he was starting. I was just like, why the hell is this dude starting? And then I was just like, oh shit, he's making threes and he's getting a bunch of rebounds for putbacks. So, I think Denver's going to be a better. I think all the teams in the league are going to be better. But as once we get closer to the end of the season, we'll see sort of the real version of what these teams really look like. But he's a good player too, man. He does a good job.
Yeah, so I don't know. You guys have anything you want to wrap the show up with that you saw for tonight, or just what you're looking forward to moving forward?
I have a question for you both.
Sure.
So that's what I've been thinking about, because obviously that second quarter lineup, right? That AC THT. I think it's AC THT, Trez, LeBron, and I think
Kuz.
One other person. And Kuz, yes, and Kuz. So obviously Morris and West can't be out of the rotation forever. But how do you think that works? Because you can't take away THT minutes. I just don't think he's too good. I just don't think he's in a DMP role anymore. He's gonna get minutes. So I'm just wondering how do you get West and Morris back in there? Do you play them with AD? That's the thing that I've been curious about watching them, just because it's obviously been a lot better, as you both said, going forward.
Yeah, so I think the main difference, that the reason why the THT Caruso So it's two things. One is when they run that all forwards lineup version instead of the one that we run right now, which is more about is the speed is one of the issues. What happens is when they run the all forwards lineup, there's almost always one or two guys on the opposing team that have a speed advantage on the Lakers. So that ends up becoming a problem for the Lakers. So I think if you have to reintegrate Wes and Marquise back into the lineup, you have to do it against teams where they're not losing the speed advantage against each other. Normally, you wouldn't think to yourself, "Oh, Wes doesn't have a speed advantage," but he kind of doesn't because his style of play is a little bit more like being physical with guys, not like running full speed up and down the court and stuff like that, like KCP or THT. So I think that's important. And the other thing is also this: I think the reason why that all forwards lineup didn't look good for any team other than maybe the Clippers is because when LeBron starts off games next to Dennis and AD and he's doing a lot of scoring, that second shift is with that group. And that group is basically a bunch of 3-and-D guys that expect LeBron to attack the rim and then create for them. But he doesn't do that because LeBron's like, I'm gassed from my first shift. You guys need to help me out and do this. And when you put THT in that group, just one guy who's willing to attack the rim, it makes a massive difference. So I think if Vogel's going to reintroduce those guys into the lineup, it'll probably be for Caruso and Kuzma, depending on what it is. The only reason I don't know, I think Wes can be integrated for Caruso. Like we saw today, like in the second half, Caruso came back in his normal rotation, but it was a little bit later after the Lakers had built a little bit more of a lead. But my concern with Keith has been is like he's been really disengaged, like on the hustle stuff. Like he's not rebounding like he was last season. And so that's really where I've sort of been concerned with him. And you know, obviously we know that Keith and Montrez are not scaring anybody from going to the rim. That doesn't mean Kuzma and Montrez will too, but Kuzma, like we saw him blow up a lob. You know, we saw him grab a bunch of defensive rebounds in traffic. He grabs offensive rebounds in traffic. So like the effort has to be there. So I think if they reintroduce those two guys, it's going to be with that lineup. But it has to be for Kuz and like Caruso. You can't take THT out of that lineup because if LeBron decides that he doesn't want to go to the rim, we have to have somebody else who's like good at getting to the rim. And the fact, and Raj, you pointed out perfectly, he has some sort of synergy with Montrez. He finds Montrez, and Montrez is, I think Pete said this, he's really good at getting into the open spaces of the interior of the defense to give you a better passing angle for a dunk. That's like a nice feel for the game that people don't realize. So I think you have to keep him in that lineup. I don't think you can pull him from that lineup just because you don't know if Braun's going to be aggressive or not. And what we've seen so far is that second shift, at least, Braun's a little less aggressive, you know, in attacking the rim and stuff like that. So we got to have a guy who's willing to put pressure on the rim.
But I think you look at last season, right, and guys like Jared Dudley, even this season, like those veteran guys are more situational. Like they're just going to have to be the guys that kind of sit out until we need them at certain times. And so Wes has been up and down this year. He's missed a few games already. With the emergence of THT, you've got to find him minutes. I mean, you got to get him on the court. And I think when you're talking about like Markieff, he hasn't been great this year. Like he was better last year in the playoffs and in the finals, but this year I don't know. I would just let him sit, man. Like I think the good thing, the luxury the Lakers have right now is that they're a championship team, right? And when you're a championship team, you have veterans. Those guys are willing to play little to no minutes, like we saw with Dudley or Dwight, even JaVale last year. So as long as this team is humming the way that it is and you're getting great minutes out of THT, you play him. The thing about West, though, is that if Caruso's playing great and KCP is playing great and THT is playing great, there is no room for West because Schroeder's still going to play no matter how bad or good he plays. He's going to play. So I think West is probably the odd man out. I think that Keith, there's opportunity for him when maybe Kuzma's not having a great game or they're playing against maybe a stronger forward that Kuz just isn't strong enough to handle. But those guys need to sit, man. Let these young guys run.
I honestly think that those guys are going to be like, if we see the Clippers in the playoffs, those guys are going to show their faces. Like Markieff is going to show up because he plays that rugged kind of defense that you have to play against. And the Clippers play big guys. Like they play these all forward line versions of their all forward lineups too as well. And that lineup actually rolled the reason why we erased that 22-point lead or deficit against the Clippers in that opening game was that lineup. Like they just came out gangbusters and were beating up the Clippers bench unit. And so, but you're right, it's a tough position to be in. But I trust Vogel and all the veterans and stuff like that. Look, man, to be honest, if I was Markeith or if I was Wes, like I know they're competitive guys, but I'd be like, I'm getting paid to chill, man, and mentor these guys. So
Right.
I don't mind
Yeah.
until they actually call my name. So I think it'll be all right. They'll figure it out.
Yeah, I
To be
mean,
fair to like to Markeith, like he's playing all his minutes next to Trez. You know what I mean? That's like tough because
Yeah.
he's not a rim protector, and he's not supposed to be the back line. And when you have only them two, they're the ones left. And I feel like he played a lot better because he played next to AD a lot in the playoffs,
Yeah.
especially in the regular season. That was the guy he
Mhm.
played with, so I'd like to see him with that. I just like the team's rolling right now, and it's like kind of like if it's not broke, don't fix it. But even though I know there's like larger goals at hand, so yeah, I think I trust Vogel too. It's just like I'm seeing it. I'm like, man, I really don't want them to break up this like Caruso, THT, Kuzma.
Yeah.
Like
right.
it's just speed, it's energy, it's like it's like an enthusiasm like,
Yeah.
that they play with that just it just shows on the screen even with no crowd. You can just see how much fun they have playing together.
Yeah.
And it's really cool to see like a young core building, I guess, in that.
Look, man, this is the last thing I'll say. I'll tell you what. If THC keeps his rotation spot like this and he keeps playing like this, somebody's going to offer him that full MLE, man. They're going to poison pill his contract for sure this offseason. And I don't know what that third and fourth year is going to look like for him. I don't think it's going to be like a max because I think that's crazy that somebody gives him that. But I wouldn't be surprised if he gets like a 4-year contract that's like the 9 million, like 15 million, 15 million. But the Lakers have a lot of time to figure out what they want to do. But they're going to match it. Like he seems like he's a guy who could potentially start for some teams, but he's doing really, really well in his role right now. And he's taking a lot of scoring burden off of LeBron when he's in those bench lineups with him.
Well, and I think to Raj's point about, it's tough for Keith playing next to like Trez. I think that when we get to the playoffs, as these teams go small, that probably means Gasol's the odd man out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Depending on the matchup. So if Gasol's out,
Good point.
those minutes that open up for Keith. So that's kind of how I see it. But you're right. I mean, look, THT, you've got to get him on the court. I mean, he goes to the rim more than everybody else. I mean, you got to get him out there.
Yeah, and he's physical. Schroeder's a finesse guy. He bounces off of guys. He's got a super nice touch, and that's good. But sometimes, he gets beat up, and it can deter him from doing that. So you got to have those kind of guys that are willing to just go to the rim and attack the rim and play through the contact. You can't just turn into a jump shooting team just because other teams get physical. So gotta let them play.
I agree, man. Raj, thanks for jumping on with us tonight, man. We appreciate it.
Anytime, man. This was fun.
Guys, make sure you give Raj a follow. You know how to find me and Vinay. Make sure you subscribe to the show on YouTube, subscribe on Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you prefer your podcast. Enjoy this win, everybody. We'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching Lakers Central.